It's been crazy.
Welcome to the Wholesaling Inc podcast. I'm your host, Chris Arnold. As always, excited that you guys are with us today. You know my style. I'll just tell you straight up what you're going to get from this podcast. So really a twofold thing. I've got Zack Boothe on, and we're going to talk about a 40-day challenge that he did. He said, hey, I'm going to take $1,000. I'm going to turn it into 40,000 via real estate, doing wholesaling, et cetera. And I'm going to do it in 40 days. Kind of like there's just value in doing something like this, because I think for a lot of us, it always comes down to what we believe and what's possible. And so we're going to break down his challenge, and I will give you a little bit of a taster, but he blew this out of the water, went way above 40K. So we're going to talk about what that looked like how did he do it, like practically, and then a couple of lessons that he learned from kind of putting this, I call them stakes, like you put some stakes out there publicly that I'm going to do this. So there's a lot of pressure, but with Zack and him and I were talking like, what'd you take away from this? And then twofold, we're going to talk at the end about radio. What's interesting, you don't know this if you're listening, Zack was the very first student in REI Radio. So literally, like even before we launched, he called me because we had met and went and did some hunting together. And he's like, man, I want to be the very first one in. And so we're going to talk about what 18 months on radios look like, because he's been longer on than any other student that we have. So kind of cool to go back and go, what does radio look like after 18 months? So Zack Boothe, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Good to see you again.
Now, people listening again, you're a long-term tribe member, so I know a lot of people know who you are, but maybe someone's new to Wholesaling Inc. Podcast and like, who's this Zack guy? So give us a little bit of your background, because you have a really, really cool story.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so I used to be a window washer. I got really good at washing windows. I started out when I was 17. I ran that for like a decade. And I just wanted to get into real estate so bad. And it was.
And when you say washing windows, weren't you doing like high rises? Like
I actually didn't do a lot of high rises actually, but I did a lot of ladder work. I was which is actually probably more dangerous. So I was doing a lot of 24 and 32 foot ladder work. It was rough. It was rough work. And, I had a cruise. I had 3 trucks, 13 employees.
But this is like a legitimate business, though. It's not, you weren't out there just washing windows. Like you created an actual business out of this.
Yeah, but I didn't make that much money, though. From the outside looking in, I was successful. I had a YouTube channel with lots of views on my tutorials. I ended up on the History Channel for it. Like from the outside looking in, it was good stuff. But people didn't see what was really going on. It was paycheck to paycheck. It was, rotator cuff going out, constantly, scrubbing windows, having to go out on job sites because, my turnover was horrible. People wouldn't show up to work. I always had more work than I had staff. It was just run down old vehicles. Oh, I hate old vehicles. I get a car with like 120,000 miles. It's gone. Get rid of it. I don't ever want to have a broken down car the rest of my life.
Yeah. So you're doing the window washing for 10 years, and then you have this vision for real estate. How and why did you make this transition from this business that you worked so hard to build to jump into real estate?
Yeah, the reason I did it is I had actually read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 14. So I've always wanted to be successful. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur from the time I was a little kid. And I asked my dad about making money. As a kid, I would mow lawns for wealthy people. My family, we didn't grow up with money. So I'm mowing lawns after work and after school, with my dad. And I'm like, Dad, how much money do these people make? And he's like, oh, probably a lot, probably 300,000-400,000 a year. And I remember thinking, I want to make $1 million in a year. From the time I was like 12, 13 mowing lawns, And I asked my dad, like, how do you make more money? How can you make more money? How do you be rich? He's like, son, I don't know. Like, go ask Clint Sherman. So Clint's one of his friends, and he has a bunch of, I talked to him the other day. He's got like 300 units now. But I was like, he doesn't have money. He's got an old rundown truck, Dad, and, just frugal, simple guy. And he's like, no, son, he's got a lot of money. Just because you don't drive a nice truck, like that doesn't equal money. But anyways, he introduced me to Rich Dad Poor Dad, and my brain started going. So when I got into doing business and bought my first house, I bought a duplex. I lived in one half and rented the other half. And this was back in about 2011. And I was like, I need more of this. I got a taste of it. It was like $450 a month payment on this little, 2-bedroom each side duplex. and I'm renting it out for $850 for the one side. So I'm getting paid to live in the other side. And I'm like, I need more of this. But then I hit all these roadblocks, right? You got to have debt to income. You got to have credit score. You've got to have, down payments for second properties. And my financial situation as a window cleaner, it just didn't allow me to scale. There was just too many roadblocks. So then I, of course, started researching, found out about real estate wholesaling, dude. And it's like, that's what I got to have. Like, that's my barrier to entry.
And it took off from there. So present day, paint a little bit of a picture for us on kind of what your business looks like. Like, what type of real estate are you focusing on? Maybe team size, all that type of stuff. Because again, at this point, man, you're a seasoned investor. You've been in the game for a while.
Yeah. I've been so blessed, man. I'm so grateful. And I put most of my success towards my mentors. Yes, I have hard work, but I would just be like a chicken with my head cut off without good mentors. So REI Radio, you, Chris, like, there was a reason I didn't let you tell me no, and I joined REI Radio, and working with Tom Kroll and working with Brent Daniels and working with a lot of the people. I bleed orange, right? I love Wholesaling Inc. So grateful for you guys. So, working hard and having mentors really helped me to get me to where I am. And I want that to be clear. I don't want this to be a brag. I just want it to be very clear that people have helped me along my way. And I have an amazing team that has helped me become successful as well. This is not all me. I feel honored and grateful. And I want to share with anyone that wants help. Like, you guys can have this, right? I'm no one special, I promise. So what my business looks like today is I have a wholesaling business / investment business. So I have some holdings that growing my net worth. And, but my main business is my wholesaling business. So I'm in 2 different markets. It's May, towards the end of May. By the end of May, we should hit about $700,000 in revenue in just assignment fees. We're not flipping any houses. That's just assigning contracts. So the goal for this year was 1.5 million in gross revenue with about 50% profit margins. So my take home this year, my goal is around $750,000, which is freaking mind blowing to me. That is just crazy to me.
Yeah. It's changed your life. It was interesting. If you guys are listening, Zack and I know each other. So he was in Tulum. I don't know what that was, maybe a couple, 2-3 months ago. And one of the things I realized, like, you came down, you got a house, with your family, and you guys just came and stayed for a couple weeks. And you were just talking about the gratitude that you had, because if it wasn't for real estate, right, and all the things that you mentioned before, you wouldn't have the ability to afford that and to do that quality time and to give your family that experience. And I saw a lot of gratitude for where you were, because there was also an understanding of where you had come from, grinding it out with the window business and so forth. But I was sitting with a guy drinking a cappuccino, looking out at the ocean with the guy going, this whole real estate thing is like changed my life. Like, I remember that moment, like there was just such a sense of like genuine gratitude that I saw in you while we were hanging out.
Yeah, man, that was pretty cool. We were having a cappuccino looking over the ocean in Tulum. And the funny thing is I actually went down to Tulum just to have breakfast with you. Like, that was like why I went there. It's like I was like kind of scratching my head. I'm like, man, I'm going to buy a plane ticket to go to Tulum to have a cup of coffee. Like, this is crazy. Right. And I was like, well, I might as well make a vacation out of it, and my wife will kill me if I go to Tulum without her. Right. So then we got an all-inclusive resort and spent a week there and had some fun with it. And yeah, man, I get emotional. Like, I'm a pretty emotional guy. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm almost crying right now, but yes, every time I think about it and I take a step back and think about, the journey to get there, I'm so grateful it sucked. I'm so grateful that it was hard. I'm so grateful that, I've had crazy moments. I remember my first rental, I was doing all the, work. Like, I was swinging the hammer on everything. I grew up doing construction. I'm actually working on one myself at nights right now. Kind of funny, but anyways, I was swinging the hammer and I lost all my employees in my window cleaning business. I went from 4 employees at the time to none. And it about crushed me because I had work for 9 employees at the time. And I remember it was like 1 a.m, and I had just installed the carpets on my basement rental. And I remember laying on the floor, just sobbing like a little kid. I remember distinctly. And I felt like I had been cheated and let down by people. But I'm grateful for those moments. I'm grateful that it wasn't easy.
Yeah. No, man. And you've gotten there. And I think it's inspirational because, we're all going through that process or have had to of, trying to piece this thing together. And it's a difficult journey. I think being an entrepreneur and not working the 9 to 5 and just going for it, as much as there's great freedom and reward around that, the path it takes to get there is full of a lot of challenges and hardships for sure. So let's transition here. I want to talk about this 40-day challenge, right? So it's like, hey, I'm going to take $1,000. I'm going to turn it into 40K, and I'm going to do that in 40 days. So my first question is, why? Why did you do this? What were you wanting people to begin to believe in and see?
Yeah. Well, when I first started learning about wholesaling, I became a skeptic, right? Because they talk about buying properties for 70 cents, 50 cents, even 30 cents on the dollar. So you're just like getting all these discounted properties. And my thought was like, that's only possible, first of all, if you're dishonest and have zero integrity. And that's not me. So that was the first thought I had. And the second thought I had was it's all a scam. These guys are scammers, right? They're not being honest with not only the sellers, and doing actual real estate deals. And then they're also being dishonest with me as the student, right? But I started learning about wholesaling and I was a skeptic. Like I was like very, very much not interested. Even though I was wanting to learn real estate and it kept getting brought up and people talking about the success, I was still a skeptic. And what happened to me is I saw it happen real life to me. I was washing windows for a very wealthy gentleman who's a real estate developer, and got talking to him about real estate, of course, because I had to know everything at that point once I found out what he did. And he ended up giving me 2 properties at a huge discount. He knew it. He didn't want to deal with them though. It just wasn't worth his time. He gave them to me seller finance, even like 2 or 3% down. Like it was crazy. I made over $100,000 on those deals. And I was like, okay, like if it exists, it was 100% integrity. He completely knew what he was doing. Right. I was the novice, And so when that happened, I became a believer. I saw it happen. And so the reason I did the 40-day challenge was for that purpose. So someone can look over my shoulder and see for themselves that you don't have to be dishonest, that you can have integrity, and that you can get properties at massive discounts consistently. There's a ton of sellers, even in really hot markets like now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know everyone's dying to know, right? So you have to choose a methodology to make this happen. There's a lot of ways you could go out there and try to find discounted properties. What did you settle on? What marketing tactic to make this happen?
Yeah. So one thing that's made me super successful as a wholesaler is my marketing strategy of driving for dollars, right? So I use driving for dollars. So basically what I was going to do is I was going to, only have $1,000. So I had to really make that money stretch as far as possible, right? So I was going to drive around. I was going to look for any properties that had physical signs of neglect using a deal machine app. And once I had those properties in an Excel spreadsheet, then I was going to get phone numbers for them and cold call them. And I was going to call as many people as I could. I remember during that challenge, there was a 4-day stretch, brother, from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. The only time I stopped was for food in the restroom. I never left the house for 4 days straight. It was horrible. It was the worst thing ever. And then there was one day I drove from the time I woke up till I went to bed. I could barely walk. My back hurt so bad. But I knew that if I just used those 2 things, drove and cold call, I could get more than 40 grand.
Yeah.
But it was work.
Man, so you come in, you burn it at both ends for, the first part of this process. And then what day is it that something happens where you make that right connection? What day was that?
Day 4.
Day four. So you make a call utilizing this process and you talk to this guy. What'd you say his name was, his first name?
His name is Jerry.
So you get Jerry on the phone, and how does this first deal unveil itself for you to meet this challenge? What's his motivation? What did you end up picking up from him?
Yeah. So if you guys can watch it, right? All of it was recorded, of course, but day 4 of the challenge, I called Jerry in the morning. And the crazy thing about day 4 is, I don't want to be too much of a spoiler alert, 3 of the many deals, we'll just say many, right? Give them a teaser. 3 of the many deals I did, I cold called that day. So 5 of the contracts, so 3 deals, 5 contracts, I cold called that morning, right? But I went to his house that evening. His name was Jerry, and his situation was he had a bunch of rentals, but he said he had a couple that were far away from where he lived, and he didn't want to deal with managing them. He told me about them, sounded like they were in fantastic condition. So you hear me on the call say, Jerry, why don't you just list them with an agent? You'll probably make more money, brother. They're completely renovated. They, like you've done all this work, put the money and just list them. He said, I don't care. Those are his exact words. I don't care. And I was like, perfect. This is exactly like that very first wealthy gentleman I was washing windows for. His name was Stan Nielsen. Similar situation, tired landlord, wealthy, didn't want to deal with them anymore.
The motivation was convenience.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to deal with the pain of this anymore. So I'm willing to, sell them at a discount, not make as much money so I don't have to deal with this headache. So you picked up those properties, and then kind of by the end of this, right? You and I were talking in your 40-day challenge, you ended up picking up 7 contracts. 2 of those did not go through. So that left you with 5. You did 3 wholesale deals. What was the total amount on the wholesale deals you did combined?
So my little deal was 10 grand.
Yeah.
Which one of those was Jerry's properties. So I wholesaled one of Jerry's properties. The next deal what took the longest to close. It was a probate deal. So I had to go through probate. So it took 2 months to close, but I got it under contract, had to finalize the paperwork. We made $30,000 on that deal. So those 2 deals, we made our goal.
You're
right?
40, you hit your goal, right?
Yep. And then as I had hoped for, I got a whopper, right? Like every once in a while, like probably every 5 or 6 deals that I do in my business, I do big deals, like anywhere between 50 and 100 grand. So I was hoping I could get one of those, and we did. We got a 50, it was actually 52. It wasn't 50, it was $52,000. So in just assignment fees, we made $92,000.
Man, that's awesome. And then the other 2 that you picked up out of the 7, 3 you wholesaled, 2 fell through. The other 2s you turned into rentals. And what type of equity did you get in those 2 properties, which then would increase obviously your net worth?
Yeah. So I bought them each for 60. They're worth about 110 each. So I basically increased my net worth by 100 grand. If I turn around and list them with an agent, would I keep all of the 100,000? No, but I make about $850 a month in rent every month on those properties. So my return on my investment's really good. They're great properties, completely renovated. Like they're awesome deals.
And that's amazing. So all said and done, $92,000 in wholesale fees and another $100,000 in equity for a total of $192 in profit combined. So here's my question. You went into this right now. I'm sure you believed in it, but man, you had some high stakes, because if you were going to fail, you were going to fail publicly because you're doing this on YouTube. But now you're on the other side of it. And I believe that if you have an experience, the most important thing is to reflect on that experience about what you took away. Experiences don't change people. Reflection upon experience does. So there were 2 things that you said you really took away from that you would think would be valuable for listeners to understand. The first one was there's opportunity everywhere. You just have to believe it. Talk a little bit more about that takeaway.
Yeah, it's just like I said, that first motivated seller I ever met, Stan Nielsen, right? I didn't believe you could find properties, but then I saw it happen in real life to me, right? And I've seeing it happen over and over, right? In my own wholesaling business now, but it's really hard to believe it when you don't see it happening. And a lot of people think there's ulterior motives when people do talk about it and those kinds of things. And so, if you watch day 4, you see it in real life. You see me meet Jerry. I'm actually going to have Jerry on my podcast that's going to be launched by the time this airs. So I'm actually going to have Jerry. He's going to be sharing, his life experience. I found out after we signed the agreements, he's dying of cancer, right? Which really broke me up. It's all on day 4. It's my favorite day of the whole challenge. If you just want to watch one day and
just go in and watch day 4.
Just watch day 4. You don't have to watch anything else, right? But he shared how he willed and dealed and how he had done deals, and he was doing, subject twos and taking over mortgages and doing all sorts of stuff before it was the cool thing to do, and he was sharing all those stories. And it's like, man, it's all been done before, and one day I'm going to be old. Right. And one day I'm going to be sick of my properties, and I'm going to find some young man or young woman that's hungry. I'll be like, here you go, dude. I'm done. Like, take them, run with them.
Give them to the next hustler. I love that. So I love this concept that, opportunity is everywhere. You really have to believe it. Right. And, as fundamental as that is, we understand that probably what's getting in most people's way when it comes to success, or even particularly success in real estate, is the psychology, man. It's a mind game. And so you either believe that there are plentiful opportunities out there, right? You have that abundance mentality, or you believe in scarcity. And so your takeaway, man, is there are opportunities everywhere, but hey, that doesn't come without getting in and honestly just busting your ass and making it happen. The second thing was the importance of consistency. Yeah. Right. We hear that a lot. I hear a lot of people really struggle with, I got my marketing in place, but I just have trouble with consistency. What was your takeaway on this piece here?
It's just important that you do the work, because I was there for 40 days and you might be like, well, you have more time. It's like, I probably have more time than most people would have. Right. But I was consistent to it. I still had to run my wholesaling business and be a part of what they had going on. I still have my students. I shipped my family off to Brazil. You'll see that in the challenge. Missed them like crazy. I made major sacrifices for the content, but it's so important to stay consistent, right? It's the more you do it, the more consistent you are on the phones, the more consistent you are at doing driving or postcards, or consistent to sending, or to putting down money in ads and radio. You can't have deals coming in unless you're consistently doing marketing, right? That's the whole business, 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So if anyone's listening going like, I got to go see day 4 of this whole thing, I want to see this Jerry story play out, or like, I'd love to watch this whole thing, because honestly, I could use the inspiration of watching someone else, get a win. Where would they go to do that?
Yeah, just go to my YouTube channel. It's DFD Mastery. So it stands for Driving for Dollars, right? DFD Mastery. Just go to YouTube, search it, pull it up. So
cool, man. Amazing story, bro. I applaud you for the courage of putting yourself out there and going for it. So, I mean, it's inspiring, man. It really is. So let's transition. Let's talk about radio. I'll give you a quick background. So I'm down in Florida. Brent Daniels, Tom Kroll, who else is down there? Pace Morby. We're hanging out, we're going hunting, and I'm talking about this concept of REI Radio. And the way that the hunting crew was like divided up, right? Like you couldn't all go together. You had to go with different guys. So I'm like, I'm going with Zack, because this guy's like a professional hunter. I don't want to go over here with Brent Daniels and Tom Kroll. This guy still knows how to shoot guns.
Yeah.
So, for me, like I'm competitive. I want to learn from someone that's good at this. So you and I, that's the first time we ever hung out. I didn't, know you before that. And I told you about this REI radio piece, and you're like, man, what I got to do to get you to teach me this before it even launches. And I'm like, man, I got a lot going on. And the one thing you got to know, about Zack is he's persistent. So I think you text me as soon as I got back, and it probably goes on for maybe 4 or 5 days. And I'm like, this guy's not going to get off my back. So I'm like, Zack, all right, let's do this. So I hope you set it up. At that point, there's no modules. There's nothing. It's just you and me one-on-one. And I hadn't actually even thought through the whole process yet on how to strategically teach it. I just kind of had to shoot from the hip. So we get you up on radio. You've been up now for 18 months advertising. And let's talk a little bit about the numbers, because I think that's interesting. People want to know, again, if I was listening, I'd be like, so what do the numbers look at? You're on a total of 5 stations right now. What is your total ad spend per month combined on those 5 stations? Because people are like, well, how much does 5 stations cost?
Yep. So per month, I've broken it down per year. Let me, rough numbers is about $30,000 a month total what I'm spending between all 5 stations.
Okay, so you've got a bigger budget at this point. That's actually pretty high for what most people are spending. So you're at 30K, but you're also in some big cities as well, which is a bit more expensive. Yeah. So you're going big at 30K a month, and you're actually on 5 stations, and you're in 2 different markets.
Yeah.
So after 18 months, one market you have is giving you a 1 to 3 return.
Yeah.
And then another market you have is giving you a 1 to 10 return. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the one market, it's actually the only station I have, the 1 to 10. I'm getting, you know, it all starts just like you teach. It all starts with getting the right station at the right price. Honestly, that's the biggest thing to this. And it's not really easy. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. You definitely had to stay on top of those salesmen. You had to be persistent, just like I was to Chris, and you know, to get what you want. But yeah, that one station's fantastic. And the reason I'm so profitable there, it's the only station that I have, and I haven't been able to get others and test. And my numbers will continue to improve on the other stations where I'm getting a 1 to 3. So for basically every or 30% of my gross revenue basically is going towards marketing. That will improve as some of those deals pending close, right? When it's, because like when you first start a marketing channel, you have leads come in and you're building relationship, you're working those leads, then they close a month or two later. So your first month or two of running ads, there's going to be no revenue. So once that kind of tapers out on some of these newer stations I've got, goes away. Plus I'm tweaking my ad spend, my timing, you know, which stations I've cut certain stations and brought other certain stations on. So my profitability will continue to get better and better and better with this marketing channel. But right now, yes, those 4 stations in this market are producing about.
And that's solid. I mean, because again, if you're listening and you're new, when we say 1 to 3 to 1 to 10, what we're fundamentally saying is your dollar per dollar return. So he's on a bunch of four stations in one market. So 1 to 3 means that he's fundamentally tripling his spend. And again, I always say for radio, if you can get a 1 to 3 to 1 to 4 return on radio or any marketing channel, that's solid. And I always tell people 1 to 3 to 1 to 4. Now on that other station, you got just a home run station, 1 to 10. I mean, that's simple to do. You're 10xing your spend over there as well. So 18 months in, rocking and rolling, have definitely increased your budget, running in 2 different markets. So, and you've just continued to be consistent with this thing. And well, I say consistent, it's not hard to be consistent on radio, but you've been consistent in your pursuit to continue to sharpen it better and scale it up. So what I wanted to know, and what I was really curious is like, okay, Zack, you've been on radio for 18 months, longer than any other student at this point. Because again, we literally launched REI Radio like 18 months ago. What are you enjoying most after 18 months in? And you gave me 3 things. The first one was automation. You said, well, the way I have structured this and also giving some of the responsibility to my marketing person, it's taken me 0 time. So like, you don't even really have to think about it or put any hours into it. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Why is that a big deal for you?
Well, it's a time thing. You know, Tom Kroll says it best. He maybe stole it from someone else, but I stole it from Tom, so I got to give him credit. But you know, he said, once you win in the game of money, there's no fun in running up the score. And so, yes, I want to continue to make more money, but I don't really want it to cost me time unless that's where I want to spend my time. Yeah. And I actually want to spend my time elsewhere than, you know, chasing marketing. You know, It's not the most exciting thing in the world. Not for me, maybe for someone else, they geek out on it, but it's not my thing. So having that freedom, having revenue coming in with none of my own time, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't think a lot of people, Zack, measure, you know, we talk about cost per acquisition, cost per lead, but I don't think a lot of people think about the cost of labor. Yeah. You don't really measure that. So with some of these other channels, yeah, it might be less expensive to do them, but how much time is it costing you to manage them? And with this, you don't really have any cost for labor here because it's not taking any hours, any minutes to manage it on your side. The second thing is network, and I get this a lot. You become a local celebrity, you have instant credibility, and all of a sudden the phone begins to ring, not just with like seller opportunities, but you have people that like want to get to know you because like, this guy must be the real deal. Like he's advertising on radio. And you've said that this has led to the additional benefit of being able to raise capital, which is amazing. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because one of the things that's helped me become successful as a real estate wholesaler is doing wholesale deals. So as I've hustled my butt off and gotten deals, people in my market know that I'm putting out deals. People talk about me in the REIA meetings and I never go to them. It's like, hey, I heard about you at the REIA meeting. I want to get on your email list. Or, hey, do you need hard money? Hey, do you need contractors? Right. But then the radio ads are doing that on top of it. Right. And my social media posts. And so when people hear it, I'm getting people that are calling in. My acquisition manager is like, gosh, dang it, it's just another contractor. Gosh, dang it, it's just someone that wants to meet Zack. But for me, that's a great thing, right? I have people reaching out to me, and it's a lot easier to put together, financial terms with someone with a private money lender or whatever. When they're coming to you and seeing what you're doing, it's a lot easier pitch. It's a warm audience, right? So
absolutely, because they've come to you to learn a little bit more about how you become successful because they have money that needs to be placed. And you're absolutely right. I'd much rather raise capital with someone that kind of moved toward me than me actually having to initiate it. It's always made it much easier because you have the upper hand from the beginning. They know, that like they're interested and already trust you. And at that point, you can make the decision on whether or not it's a good lending relationship.
Yeah. And even if you do have to move towards them, it's like, yeah, my name's Zack Boothe. You might have heard my radio ads and, may have seen my YouTube channel. And once
there you go. I love it. You're actually doing it the flip way around too.
Yeah, you can do it the flip way. And they're like, oh yeah, I heard that. You're the guy that's like, I buy divorce houses. Like they can you know what I mean? Like I've had so many people know the REI radio script, it's kind of
that's awesome, man. And then the last thing, this one actually hasn't come up a lot. And I think it's just because you've been in longer, right? I hear a lot of, I love that it's set it and forget it. It's low maintenance, all those type of things. But the ease of measurement when it comes to the KPIs, I thought this was interesting. Why did you throw this one as really the third thing you've enjoyed?
Well, as I've scaled my business, I have a team now. My acquisition manager, we calculated it last week. He's negotiated in 2.5 years for me, $1.8 million in gross revenue, right? Which is so cool to see. But for that to happen and for me to be completely passive and spend my time with my family and coaching students and going down to Tulum and hanging out with my buddy Chris, for me to be able to do that, I have to have a way to manage my business without being present. And that is your numbers. That's knowing I'm spending this many dollars and this many dollars are getting spit back out. My money machine is spitting money, right? And so being able to know, okay, where exactly am I spending my money and where exactly is it coming from is so very important, right? Your KPIs. And so let me give you an example. My favorite strategy is driving for dollars, but there are some complications there that aren't in radio. But there are also some perks there that aren't in radio, right? But one of the perks from radio compared to driving for dollars is the trackability. So with driving for dollars, let me explain. You've got to have, I break my driving for dollars KPIs into multiple sections. My driving for dollars turd list, the really bad ones, that's its own unique marketing list. Then I track the texting, the cold calling, and the postcards just to that list. How many leads, appointments, contracts, all that, all the way through, right? Then I have my driving for dollars owner occupied, same thing, texting, cold calling, all that, all the way through, right? Then I have my corporate owned, and then I have my absentee. So I have 4 different lists within the driving for dollars list. And you don't have to do this that crazy if you're gonna do driving for dollars.
But when you hear, I'm hearing you now going, that's a complex tracking. But with radio, we put a unique phone number on each ad. It automatically, loads into whatever CRM that you're using. And so we always know with 100% accuracy how much money that we are making on each of those radio stations. So I agree with you. I don't hear it said a lot, but I do love the ease of tracking as well. So Zack, buddy, what's that?
On top of that, your sales reps send you reports for how many ads were run and
absolutely. Even ahead of time, when your ads are going to play 24 hours in advance and when the phone's going to ring. If someone's working a 9 to 5, they're like, how great is that? I wake up and literally know when a lead is going to come in based on my airtime, which is huge. So, well, Zack, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I was just super, interested in, letting the rest of the tribe that maybe didn't see it know that 40-day challenge that you did. I think it's exciting. And I also think it's super cool to come back and talk to the very first REI radio student that, came in even pre the existence of REI radio right before we launched. So to anyone else listening, again, check Zach's YouTube out, man, if you want to just kind of get some inspiration today. And as always, if the radio piece is something that you're looking for, you're interested in, we'd love to help you out, answer any questions you have, and more importantly, just make sure it's a good fit for you. So you can always check that out at wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Again, wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Zach, thank you so much, buddy. And to the rest of you guys, we will catch you soon when we add more value. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Chris.